There was this incident, and I'm sure you remember this incident. We were actually in church,
Mm-hmm.
and Sandy got sick. Remember, Sandy got sick in church, and she couldn't move her legs. She couldn't stand up, and she was sitting on a pew, and she couldn't move her legs. I don't know how she ended up getting to mom, but she
Mm-hmm.
did get to mom, and she was sitting on this pew, and she couldn't move her legs,
Mm-hmm.
and she was crying, and then mama was crying, and the next thing I heard mama say was, Satan, you're a liar. She said,
Mm-hmm.
Satan, you're a liar. And then the next thing I know, they were getting Sandy up off the pew, and they just had her start running in place, and she started running, and she has been moving since that time. We're keeping it real. Faith, life, and love. The way that we feel. Laughing, talking, praying too. It's a sisterhood made just for you. We've got wisdom, we've got grace. Walking with Jesus every day. Come on in, don't look back. Welcome to Church Girl Chats. Church Girl
Hey, everybody,
Chats.
it is your girl, Coach Cheryl,
I'm Valerie.
and this is
Church Girl
Girl
Chat.
Chats. Oh, we got the same note. Look at that. All right, we about to get together. We would like to welcome you all back to this episode of Church Girl Chats, and we are in the beautiful month. We are in the beautiful month of March, and so our segments on this month are going to be talking about all things because we know it is what March is.
International Women's History Month.
So we're going to be talking this month on the women who impacted our lives, women that were world shakers in our personal lives and in the lives of other people. And so if you are a woman, if you know a woman, we want you to call somebody, reach out to somebody, share this with someone. We want to celebrate women this month in particular, as it is set aside for that. And because often we are unsung heroes and women don't get the platform, especially, and I'm going to say it, especially in the church. And so we're going to be diving into that on the next two episodes. So hope that you will join us. And on tonight, we're going to be talking about the church mothers who carried us. And even as I was thinking about this particular episode, I started going back through our youth as members of the church and looking over the congregation and seeing the women that were there and the women that impacted us. And so I want to use this specific episode to laud them, applaud them, to give them their props. Many of them have gone on to be with the Lord. Some of them are still among us now. And so I wanted just to take this time just to appreciate their sacrifice, everything that they poured into us to help us become godly women and, for that matter, godly men, for all the people that they mentored personally, people that they mentored from afar. And so we wanted to just celebrate them. And so this segment, this part of tonight's episode, we're going to call it Who Raised You Spiritually? And so my first question is, when you think about church and growing up, who was the person or who were some of the women that shaped you in your faith?
There are so many people that shaped me, and I when I got the outline and I was looking at it, I was like, there is not just one person, I guess, that shaped me in my growing up in church. We had a village, and when I say we had a village, these young people have no idea of what a real village was, because there was not a mother in the church that didn't impact you in some way. For me, of course, my mom will always be at the top of the list of the women who shaped me naturally. But then you had like our grandmother, Mama
Mm-hmm.
Watts. And then you had Mother Robbie Camps.
Yeah.
You had Mother Daisy Rollins.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Aunt Nita, Aunt Genevieve. There were so many others. Mother Graham, you
Mm-hmm.
know, I was like, wow, all of those people really
Sister
did.
Patrick.
Sister Patrick, right? They
Mm-hmm.
had such a real, hand in us being who we are. You had at Mabel, um, you had even though they were not necessarily so much older as the ones that I previously named, but even Carolyn Camps,
Mm-hmm.
she was probably a good 10, 15 years older than us, and so we had to obey our elders, and at that time she would have been our elder.
And they meant it too.
So she even had a hand, in raising us, teaching us Sunday school, teaching us how to be a church Sunday school secretary, all of that, So all of them had a hand in raising us, and even if you come outside the church, our neighbors
Mm-hmm.
had a hand being a part of our village, because
And they.
Aunt Bay, sure enough, and Aunt Nan,
Mm-hmm.
they were. It was just so many of them
Right.
that had a hand in us becoming who we are. So you can't name just one, because pretty much every last one of them had a hand in it.
And I think that's for me, similar to what you said. I think this new generation, um, I think they're missing out on so much community
Absolutely.
that we had growing up. Like you said, with all those church mothers that had such a great role in the women that we are today, that had such a great role in forming who we were as believers, forming who were as children, as women growing up, and so there were just so many people. And so even as I look at today's generation, whether that's what is it, millennials, Gen Y, XYZ, WLMNOP, whatever letter we're on now, um, I think we have become so individualistic that we miss out on the beauty of
Mm-hmm.
community, that we pick apart the things we may not have liked about
Right.
community, like everybody in my business,
Right.
and all of that. But for us, and I think even for our parents, it was a good thing to have very a few trusted people
Right.
in your business that could tell you what to do, that could discipline you,
Mm-hmm.
that I mean, our neighbors could discipline us, our family members, our aunts and our uncles could discipline us, and we had such a good
We
community
did.
that our parents weren't afraid that they would abuse or misuse us.
Right.
And so I I think about all the women that you have mentioned that were just so instrumental,
Mm-hmm.
not just in our lives, but in the lives of the church.
Right.
Women that were pillars
Right.
in the church. That church wouldn't have been what it was without them.
Right.
And so I wanted to make sure that we, took some time. We've said some names, and so you've heard like some of the pillars that were in our church. But I want you to, as you are listening, to be able to go through your mental Rolodex and think about the women that shaped you, that shaped your spirituality, that shaped the person, that shaped your mentality, that shaped your psychology, that shaped your worldview. And I want you to honor them by putting them in the comments
Mm-hmm.
so that we can celebrate them too, because they were such a so foundational in our lives. And so we want you to make sure that you celebrate them as well. So
Mm-hmm.
drop those down in the comments so we can celebrate them, whether they are still here with us. Let us know that. Whether they have gone on to be with the Lord, let us know that in the comments as well. But even as we kind of walk through the women that shaped our faith, who out of those women, who was the woman that taught you to pray?
Honestly, again, I'm gonna have to say my mom.
Mm-hmm.
It's something about hearing her pray, and I think I prayed kind of like her,
Mm-hmm.
because that's the one, that I guess I just her prayers move me.
Mm-hmm.
And to hear her say, Father, and it's just a, Father, we thank you for this day, just to hear her just call out to God like that. And then there was this incident, and I'm sure you remember this incident. We were actually in church,
Mm-hmm.
and Sandy got sick. Remember, Sandy got sick
I
in
remember.
church, and she couldn't move her legs. She couldn't stand up, and she was sitting on a pew, and she couldn't move her legs. I don't know how she ended up getting to mom, but she
Mm-hmm.
did get to mom, and she was sitting on this pew, and she couldn't move her legs,
Mm-hmm.
and she was crying, and then mama was crying, and the next thing I heard mama say was, Satan, you're a liar. She said,
Mm-hmm.
Satan, you're a liar. And then the next thing I know, they were getting Sandy up off the pew, and they just had her start running in place, and she started running, and she has been moving since that time. But that was one of those incidents, as a little kid, you kind of just sitting there, and you just
What's
kind of,
going on?
what are they doing, kind of thing. And but that was one of the things, and she meant it. Mom said that, she said that from her core.
Mm-hmm.
Satan, you are a liar.
Mm-hmm.
And the next thing you know, Sandy was up. She was running in place.
I vaguely remember that. I guess your memory for that particular incident is a lot sharper
Uh-huh.
than mine, but I vaguely remember that. I don't know how young I must have been when that happened.
I don't know how. I think maybe I was about 10, between 10 and 12.
Okay, so I should have been old enough to
Yeah,
remember that
yeah,
then.
I was somewhere
Okay.
in that age range. But that's the one time I saw her, like, she meant business. She's like, nope,
Mm.
I ain't having it.
Yeah, yeah. And I think for me it was the same thing. I remember our mom taking us across,
Gainesville.
oh, to prayer band. Oh my goodness. We sitting up there and we be in there and they be over just going forth in prayer. And I don't think I was old enough to really understand. I
Yeah,
just knew mama had a prayer band meeting and we were going.
and we were going. There wasn't no babysitters. Yeah. Now there were times we would sit in the car, but for the most part, she brought us in the house and we sat down and.
And listen to the prayers of the women wailing before the Lord, laying out their petitions.
Yep.
So I do remember that. And I also remember um, we were in the house, we were eating dinner. And I remember mom asking us, um, did we have the evidence of speaking in tongues? And the whole breakfast table got quiet. It was like, what and she was so sincere. She wanted to know that we were filled with the Holy Spirit and that we had the evidence of speaking in tongues. And that was her prayer and that was her desire. And I think we're even kind of like, we were probably teenagers probably at this time. We were kind of like, whatever, it's time to eat. Like, praying for us to have the Holy Ghost. But she was so sincere. And I can remember, I don't know if it was a week later, we were in revival at Holy Temple of God, and Beverly Crawford was there doing a revival, I think it was.
Uh-huh.
And she called me up. Now, when you were young, you didn't want to be called up. Now, thanks to God today, they be trying to get in the way to be called up. But if you were a child raised in the church, the last thing you wanted to do was be spied by the visiting pastor to say anything. And so when she called my name, I was like, oh, Lord, I got to go before the people. And she prayed for me that day. And that day, the Lord gave me the evidence of speaking in tongues. I must have been 14, 15 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And so I can remember our mom really emphasizing the necessity of prayer, the power of prayer, and that even if she didn't like say it's necessary that you need to learn, but by her lifestyle, the
Mm-hmm.
things that she would tell us how powerful prayer was, and so she shaped my prayer life. I think probably more than anyone
Mm-hmm.
that I, especially in my earlier years. Later on, there were some other people that were powerful in prayer, and I remember. And I'm going down, and I'm not even going to tell you that story. We're going to save that story for later because I have when you were born and raised in the church, you have many stories, many stories. But we're gonna save that one for last or for later. So another thing was, well, who do you remember? Because we got a lot of correction growing up,
Oh man.
but who do you remember, or who sticks out to you that was able to correct you in love?
For me, that would be Aunt Mabel.
Mm-hmm.
And Mabel was always very, she knew how to talk, I guess, particularly to me. And that's how I feel like she knew how to talk to me.
Mm-hmm.
And she, would always gently, correct me. I don't ever remember her ever correcting me in a way that I got upset with her either.
Mm-hmm.
She was always very, gentle with her correction, but it was necessary. So she would probably be the one person that I could say.
Okay. And I was thinking about that. I was like, did you correct me? And I think because of my personality, I probably didn't see it as love. And most of you don't know, I was a very I was a very precocious child. I was
Tell
very
her to give you the definition of precocious. Tell her don't make you go
oh,
look it up.
okay. I was very, and I'll say it this way. I was very headstrong. Um, I was very much so. I know what I'm talking about. I know what I'm doing. So, and I was very vocal as a young child, no matter who you were. I didn't care if you were an adult.
No, she didn't. No, she didn't.
I was, I had, and it is so funny, even as I'm thinking about it now, I had no fear for anyone. And so I was corrected a lot, as you can imagine. So when I think about people that corrected me in love, I think the person that probably comes more to mind is Mama Watts.
Okay.
She had a because I was her favorite, right?
You
Anyway.
know, okay. Y'all don't buy that from her, okay? Don't buy that.
So, but she had a way of I think it was just her tone of voice.
Uh-huh.
The way that she would speak to me when I did something wrong. I was the person that mom sent to their house to, when you went to your grandparents' house and they had little chores for you to do, and she would always give me some money and stuff. So I'd be there, dusting the house or doing the dishes, little things around the house just to help out. And if I did something wrong, she always, in such a subtle, soft way,
Mm-hmm.
would correct me. And so that's the person that I think about or that comes to mind when I have to wrench to find someone
So
that
you got the wretch to find somebody,
I
huh?
do because I've got corrected a lot, and because I was how I was as a child, they had to do it a little stern to bring me back in. And so, last question for this particular segment: um, who modeled holiness to you? In this day and age, I think a lot of times people look to social media for models, but we were before the generation of social media. We remember when the internet arrived. so and it doesn't have to be just one person, but somebody that you could think, whether it was when you were really young or in your young adulthood, that modeled um, holiness to you.
There were actually several people that modeled holiness to me. Inside my local church, of course, that would be Mama Watts that modeled holiness to me, and Mama Watts had some good friends
Hmm.
that modeled holiness to me, and that was Mother Benjamin,
Hmm.
and then
Okay.
there was Mother Harrington.
Oh, I forgot about Mother
So,
Harrington. Yes.
and they were good friends. That they had that circle, that they kind of and let's kind of lay this foundation too. And the reason why I went outside of the local church, because back then our district
Was so tight.
was really, really a tight knit family. Back then when we were growing up, and so our at Fifth Sunday meetings we would go from church to church to church. And I don't know if you remember this, but when we would go to the district meeting on Sundays, we would eat dinner,
I
and
do.
everybody brought a dish
Hmm.
to the Fifth Sunday meeting. So you weren't just coming to have church, you were coming to fellowship. So we were real, real, real tight. And so you got to know the mothers from other local churches. And so those are two of the ones that I remember that were really, really close with Mama Watts. But she would be, the first person, like I said, inside my local church would be her that modeled holiness to me. And then Mother Benjamin, and then Mother Harrington.
Okay.
Now I didn't like Mother Benjamin. She she was a prayer warrior. And if you got into something, the Lord was gonna tell her. And so I didn't really like to get that close to Mother Benjamin because I was like,
So
oh,
let us stay over there.
let her stay over there.
That's when and I don't want to say average people because she was not average. She was
uh-uh.
such a pillar and such a trailblazer.
Mm-hmm.
But that's when it wasn't just your pastors that had power.
Right.
It wasn't just the bishops that had power. These were everyday church members
Mm-hmm.
that were powerful.
Right.
I mean, all the church mothers had like a strong prayer life. It wasn't just call sisters. They all had strong
Right.
prayer lives. They had strong presence. They had a strong relationship with God. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's when I think members, maybe that's
Mm-hmm.
a better way to say it, when members were strong,
Right.
biblically, they were strong in prayer. They were strong in their devotion
Mm-hmm.
to God. Now we look to people and we're like, oh, you have a devotion to God, and oh, this is your devotional life. That was the norm.
Mm-hmm.
That was nothing special. Like that you read the Bible every day and that you prayed every day was nothing special. That was baseline. That was, what you mean you don't read your Bible every day? What you mean you don't pray every day? So those things were so foundational
uh-huh.
when we were growing up that when people look at that now and they are like, oh, well, how do you develop a prayer life? That's what we saw. That's what
Yeah.
we
It was
grew up
modeled.
around. Yeah,
It
it
was
was
modeled.
modeled before us, so it just became a part of our lives.
Right.
But there were so many people that modeled holiness to me, and I know sometimes when people hear holiness, you think like long skirts,
Opaque
oh
stockings.
yeah, oh, I'm like the stockings you can't see through for real. So sometimes that's what comes to mind. But for me, holiness was a gentle spirit, warm presence, somebody that actually lived the word,
Mm-hmm.
didn't just talk about the word, but lived the word. And so there were so many people, and for me, younger people come to mind. And I think about Karen Alford now,
Uh-huh.
which was Karen Camps at the time. I think about Judith.
Uh-huh.
I think about Brenda.
Yeah.
For me, looking at them walk out their life with Christ was just a blessing to
Right.
see. Because I don't know if in my young mind, I'm thinking that now they were in far enough away in age from me for me to like really be looking up to them and to be esteeming them as young women of God and
Mm-hmm.
wanting to model after. So those were the people that I think about when I think about people that were modeling holiness, that were living right. And for a young person, seeing someone that young live right but still have a full, vibrant life,
Right.
not be set up in a corner rocking and whatever.
Looking like
But
they sucking lemons and stuff,
yeah,
right?
looking like they serve the Lord on because they had to, because it was a requirement and not that because it was a joy.
Right.
And so those are the women that I think about when I think about modeling holiness and living right. And so I want to segue really quickly as we're celebrating women during this National Women's History Month. I want to talk about the unseen labor of women, especially in the Black church. Excuse me. We are such women are such pillars
Mm-hmm.
in the church, but it's almost like they're invisible pillars. You know how like you have the foundation of a building. It's there, it's solid, it's stable, it's sure, but you don't see it because of
Mm-hmm.
all the other accoutrements around it. And so I saw women growing up, and I still see women today be such stable forces in the church, but a lot of times I don't think they get the recognition
Mm-mm.
um, that they deserve. And so, and even as I think about it, as we talk about the prayer warriors in the church, even as I'm in my mind right now, looking through the church, seeing the praying people in church, they were
Mm-hmm.
mostly always women. And so, why do you think that women have historically carried so much of the spiritual work, the spiritual labor in the church?
Um, because women are used to birthing out things. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so as one of our mentors would say, as it is in the natural, so is it in the spiritual. And women, they are used to going through what some people would call the labor process, um, getting in there and working it through and bringing something, to life. And that's what we are, you know, that's one of the innate things, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
in women. And so I believe that is one of the reasons. And I don't know if it's a thing that's taught to men.
Mm-hmm.
I can't really, I don't want to speak too heavily on that because there's going to be some man out there that is just going to let me have it for saying it. But women know how to travail.
Mm-hmm.
Women don't mind crying.
Mm-hmm.
Women don't mind going before, the face of God and seeking Him for whatever it is that they need. And they stay there until they see what it was or receive what it was that they went for. That's like Hannah when she went to the temple to pray, and the priest is looking at her like she must be crazy. And Hannah said, "No, I'm not crazy. I have something that I want from the Lord." And then he finally understands, oh, okay. And then so men don't, they don't. I find that a lot that I have encountered. I'm not saying all, so don't come at me. Don't want to they don't want to labor for it. They
Mm-hmm.
don't have the patience um, for it. Now, there are some that will, but as a whole, women, they get in there and they are persistent. Um, our cousin Jonathan likes to call me, and I couldn't stand when he said it because it made me feel like a nag. But then I had to say to myself, well, it's a compliment,
Mm-hmm.
that I if I want something, I'm just gonna keep coming until I get what I want. Just like the woman, she was like, well, the dogs have the crumbs from the table. You give them that. And so I'm just like, well, I just have to be the woman with the unjust judge, and I just keep going until I get what it is that I'm needing.
Mm-hmm.
So women are just, they just know how to travail and stay there until they get what they went for. And so that's my answer. How about you?
Well, I think a part of it is nature, and I think a part of it is nurture. I think that yes, women are naturally um, inclined to travail in prayer. And for the men, there's nobody that prays like my dad. My dad will pray you in and pray you through. So for all the men that, like Valerie said, that may be like, well, I'm a prayer warrior. Bless your hearts. Yes, you are. Our father is as well. But you see more women
Mm-hmm.
that have the gift of prayer. I remember I said that to someone, and he almost ate my head off because I said some people have the gift of prayer or gifted to pray. But I believe that. Do I believe that everybody has a responsibility? Every Christian, every believer has a responsibility to pray, but some people have a mantle to
Mm-hmm.
pray. And so I think that women, um, because it has been so prevalent in
Mm-hmm.
the black church, I think that we just took that up. But I think that it is because we have are naturally given to it, and because we've been nurtured, we
Mm-hmm.
have seen women
Right.
travail in prayer. We haven't often seen men
Mm-hmm.
that would go before the Lord and travail in prayer. So I, even though we are naturally gifted to it, I wish and I would that more men, because for me, I love to hear women pray, but there is something
Mm-hmm.
about a man
Yeah.
that really goes before the throne and really prays. That I believe it's powerful. And so I wish, I know we applauding the women, but I'm gonna throw this out there for the women that have sons and husbands. Um, Pray that the Lord would give them a mantle to pray as well. All righty. Oh, I love this particular question. Do you think the women during that time, do you think they felt empowered or did they feel overburdened in their assignments?
I actually don't feel like they were overburdened.
Mm-hmm.
I think they got joy out of what they did. There was something in our upbringing that they taught us that I don't hear today, and that is the scripture: "Whatever thy hands find it to do, do it with all thy might." And that was what they used to tell us.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever your hands find to do, and that's kind of how Mama Washington said, "Whatever your hands find to do, do it with all your might." So don't be one of those people that's just sitting around, seeing that there is a need for something in your house. And when I say your house, your church home, seeing that there is a need for something to be done, you have the ability, the talent, and the skill to do so, but won't because there's no money tied to it. Listen, I like a little check every now and then. I'm not even going to lie. But let me just say this: there is no blessing better than the blessing that the Lord gives. So I say, whatever my hands find to do in this house, let me do it because I'm doing it as unto the Lord, and can't nobody pay like God can pay. So that's my thought process. And I'm always busy doing something. Sometimes maybe I should sit down and be still, but if I see that there is a need and I have the ability to do it, I just go forth to do it. And I think that's kind of how they operated.
Mm-hmm.
That's, I think something that I learned from them
Mm-hmm.
was, look, ain't no idle hands in the house of God. If there's a job to do, let's get it done. And that's what they did. And I think that they were even allowed back then to operate freely,
Mm-hmm.
without restraint for the most part, because the gift that they had, it just overflowed. And I don't remember seeing any pastor telling any one of them to sit down or be quiet or stay in your lane. I don't remember hearing that back then, but they all just operated in their lane, and God used them.
Yeah, I don't think, I think we are in a different dispensation, a different era, a different time. Because I don't remember them, or I don't remember feeling
Mhm.
like they thought that it was a burden.
Mhm.
Um, for them, it was a joy to be used by the Lord. It was a joy to be called of the Lord. It was a joy to be counted worthy
Mhm.
to offer something to the Lord. And so I don't remember even hearing them or seeing them feel um, overburdened by things. Now, were they tired? Yes. But and maybe it was the era that they were living at. There was not this incessant complaining
Mhm.
about things. Like I said, just to be used by the Lord was a gift. It was a joy. It was a pleasure, a privilege, and an honor. And they served the Lord with gladness.
Mhm.
Whether it was um, cleaning the bathrooms, whether it was, cleaning the dishes at church after we had dinner every first Sunday. That
Mhm.
was our dinner for the church.
Right.
Oh, I miss those times. But just anything to do, they were busy and seemed. I was a kid. They seemed to love it.
Uh
They
huh.
seem to love it. All right, we are moving quickly. I want to just catch on or touch on just one or few more topics in the segment. What are we carrying now? Um, what did they model well to you?
Um, I got to think about that. How about you go first?
Um, for me, I think they modeled community really well. I think they modeled teamwork exceptionally well. I think they modeled truth. I think they modeled what true Christianity and what it really means to be a believer. Um, they modeled love for God and love for other people in a way that I have not seen in these days and times. I have not seen people love other people
Genuinely.
like they did.
Right.
Oh my goodness, when they loved people. I
Mm-hmm.
mean sincerely and truly, and would do for you and would help you and would just be there for you in ways this individualistic world just does not
Mm-hmm.
do. It wasn't like, me and mine, and it was like, okay, well, sister so and so needs so and so, they're having issues over here, and everybody came together
Right.
to make sure that that family had, or that brother had, or that sister had. It
Uh-huh.
was so communal, and I miss that so much. It
Mm-hmm.
was so communal. It was really the Acts model of the church,
Yeah.
where we were really, really concerned
Uh-huh.
about one another, not just about your spiritual life, but we were concerned: are you eating?
Right.
Do your kids have clothes for school?
Right.
You know, that was such a concern for the whole person. They wanted to see
Mm-hmm.
you whole, healed, well in every aspect of your life. And so they modeled that so well, that we would do wonderfully if we could just get a fraction
Right.
of the, when the Bible says that they'll know you by the love that you have one toward another. That's how
Uh-huh.
they'll know you're Christians. That's how they'll know that you're believers. They modeled that.
Exactly.
They modeled that. Today we working on it. But that's what I think they modeled
Yeah, I
really
guess we
well.
we kind of gotten away from it somewhere along the line. So you are correct. I do remember those days, and it was just a unique feeling to be a part of something like that. It would be great to see the Lord bring us back to that. Um, Hopefully not by trial and fire. Hopefully we just wake up and say, "Oh, I need to."
I need to
Oh,
help out.
we got away from this, and we need this.
Hmm.
But the way things going, it might be trial and fire to get us back to that. But um, that we genuinely care enough, about what's going on with our neighbor.
Hmm.
So you are correct in that.
Yeah. So what? Before the last thing we'll do, this last question, is what do we need to do differently? Seeing everything that they modeled before us, the things that they taught us, the things that we learned. What are things that we need to do differently, or we could do differently
I
now?
think the first step might be to just accept people for where they are and for who they are. A lot of times we want to make people be what we think they should be. But
Hmm.
if we will just accept people for who they are, love them for who they are and where they are, put prayer into everything that we do. Because if there's something that needs to be changed, your mouth don't have to be the thing that makes them change. A prayer to
Hmm.
God for on somebody's behalf,
Yeah.
and He could work on their heart, and then you would be witness to seeing that change. Um, so I think that is where we need to start. I think we can be less judgmental of others. Everybody doesn't have your background. They don't have your experience. They don't have your upbringing. Some don't know what you think is right is wrong, or vice versa. So if we just love people like God loves us, sometimes I think about sometimes us being so judgmental on other people, we don't see the beam that's in our eye. And I wonder if we stop to think, He's our Father and we have our own issues and we have our own problems. Is He judging me like we're judging other people? I would hate
Hmm.
for God to judge me based on my shortcomings and my downfalls the way that I might be judging somebody else. So sometimes I have to back up and say, what, they got their own issues, they got their own problems. Who am I to judge you
Hmm.
for what you have or what you're into? But I don't want somebody to do me the same way. So I just kind of say,
True.
what, God, forgive me, because who am I to think that I'm better, or that I would never even fall to what they're doing, because I could.
Right.
you, you
Exactly.
you just never know what a day may bring. And so
Hmm.
just be grateful for where you are and accept people for where they are.
Yeah, I love that. And I agree wholeheartedly with that. That if we show them a better picture of who God is by being a better reflection
Mhm.
of who He is, and by just sharing the love of God with them and allowing Him
Mhm.
to do the work
Exactly.
in them,
Mhm.
allowing Him to change their hearts, their minds, their behaviors, trusting God enough
Mhm.
with His child. Like this is God's child.
Right.
And I just like I trusted God with me,
Mhm.
I can trust God with you.
Right.
That He will lead you and He will guide you
Mhm.
into all truth. And that it's not my job to wrangle you into the truth. Now I can share what I believe to be truth with you,
Uh-huh.
um, share it in love, but the work that it takes to change hearts and change minds, that has to come from God.
Right.
That has to be a work of the Spirit and not just a work of the flesh where I'm trying to impose
Right.
my thoughts, my ideas, or my will on you, but allow God to do that.
Mhm.
So I know we have gone on and on. We've gone longer than we thought we would, but y'all saw we started reminiscing about some of the good old days, and I believe some of the best days are still yet ahead of us.
Uh-huh.
Hope that you have enjoyed the episode on tonight. If you have some tips or things that you believe that we could do better as believers to witness to this new generation, to show love to each other, let us know that in the comments. We'd be really interested to see that as we share in community together. And thank you all so much for joining, and be sure to join us on next week where we will do part 2 of our Women's History Month series. Love you all.
Bye.
I'm on a church girl chat. We're keeping it